The EU says it will use all legal means to force pharmaceutical companies to deliver the agreed quantities of coronavirus vaccines. Earlier, inspectors visited an AstraZeneca factory near Brussels looking for evidence of production problems. Germany's vaccine committee says there's not enough data to recommend AstraZeneca's COVID jab to people over 65. The company and UK health officials insist the vaccine works equally well in all age groups. President Biden has taken the first steps to rebuild Barack Obama's healthcare legislation, parts of which were gutted by the Trump administration. Mr. Biden said it was imperative to make healthcare available in the middle of the pandemic. And a court in Russia has rejected an appeal from the country's leading opposition figure, Alexei Navalny, against a 30-day detention imposed when he returned from Germany.
In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa urges rich countries not to claim all the supplies of COVID-19 vaccines. In India, thousands of farmers marched Tuesday in the capital New Delhi to protest agricultural reforms. They attacked barriers and clashed with police. Iran warns the U.S. government that it has a limited time to rejoin the 2015 nuclear deal between it and several other nations. And in the United States, California lifts its statewide stay-at-home orders for the coronavirus health crisis.
We begin with breaking news out of the United States. The latest GDP data show the U.S. economy shrank last year by 3.5%. That's the biggest contraction since 1946, when the country was just emerging from World War II. An announcement from the Commerce Department on Thursday shows the full extent of economic challenges created by the coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 caused massive shutdowns, left many out of work, and forced the government to inject trillions of dollars into the flailing economy. Moving now to Japan, where officials reported more coronavirus deaths on Thursday than ever before. 113 people died, surpassing a record set on Friday. The number of serious cases across the nation remains stubbornly high, even as daily tallies of infections continue to fall, with 4,133 new cases reported Thursday. Now, Tokyo is following a similar trend, confirming more than 1,000 new cases. The steady onslaught of new patients is keeping hospital beds full and experts concerned.
Clusters are occurring frequently in different areas and at hospital facilities. As a result, the infection continues to spread. People need to remain on high alert.
The capital's state of emergency is set to expire in early February, but government experts say people must continue to take strict preventive measures. Case numbers have been steadily declining, but the average daily infection tally is still 3 times the level seen last summer at the peak of Tokyo's second wave. Experts are also warning of a sharp increase in infections among the elderly. They say preventing further spread within that vulnerable group will be crucial to protecting overburdened healthcare systems. Officials outside Tokyo are also worried.
I can see a slight downward trend, but it is difficult to predict which way things will go.
Osaka is also under a state of emergency and seeing the strain of continued infections on crowded hospitals. For now, struggling prefectures cannot impose legal penalties to punish people who defy antivirus measures, but that could soon change. Japanese lawmakers seem close to agreement on bills that would allow officials to impose fines on rule breakers. Opposition and ruling parties have settled a disagreement on the heft of punishments, doing away with potential jail sentences and limiting financial penalties to roughly $5,000. Now, Japan's upper house has passed the third supplementary budget for fiscal 2020. Expenditure comes to about $180 billion. Some of that money is earmarked for tackling the coronavirus and supporting the economy. The budget includes emergency grants to strengthen the medical care system. One target there is securing hospital beds. There's also money to deal with severe wind and flood damage, as well as aging infrastructure. The budget also includes spending for extension of the Go To Travel campaign. The campaign subsidizes domestic travel to support the tourism industry, which has been hit by the pandemic. It's currently suspended because of rising numbers of coronavirus cases. And the pandemic continues to be a logistical nightmare for athletes, with the spreading virus forcing yet another Olympic qualifier to be postponed. Organizers of an artistic swimming event say they can no longer hold their event this March in Tokyo. The final qualifier was set to take place over 4 days at the Tokyo Aquatic Center starting March 4th. The swimming world's governing body, FINA, says it will now be held at the start of May. This would have been the first test event held since the pandemic began. And organizers were planning to try out new anti-infection measures. Hundreds of overseas athletes and staff were set to take part. Japan was easing entry restrictions for athletic events, but it put that on hold when the state of emergency was called for 11 prefectures, including the capital. Officials in Beijing are restricting entry to the capital ahead of the country's busiest holiday season. Chinese authorities have called on people to limit travel for the Lunar New Year and before the National People's Congress. Officials expect more than 1.7 billion trips within the country. China has seen a recent uptick in coronavirus cases in northern regions. New measures aim to curb local spread. Beijing is tightening its borders from now until March 15th, 10 days after the annual parliament kicks off. Travel from high-risk areas is banned. Anyone coming from other areas in China needs to show they've tested negative for the virus. For 2 weeks after arriving, travelers also need to keep local authorities updated on their health conditions. And authorities will require weekly PCR tests. Now, the World Health Organization says the number of cases of coronavirus variants are rising across the globe, and it's reiterated its call for countries to adhere to public health and social measures. The WHO says the variant first identified in Britain has now been verified in 69 nations as of Monday. It's been detected in countries in Europe, North and South America, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. The other variant, first identified in South Africa, has now been verified in 25 countries. The report says studies of a limited number of patients show the South African variant may escape immune responses acquired from previous infection, and further investigation is needed. The latest data compiled by Johns Hopkins University in the United States show over 100 million cases of the coronavirus have been confirmed worldwide, and more than 2.1 million people have died. The U.S. administration under President Joe Biden says it stands with Southeast Asian nations in their territorial disputes with China over the South China Sea. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke by phone on Wednesday with Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs Teodoro Locsin. Blinken said Washington rejects Beijing's claims in the South China Sea and pledged to support Southeast Asian countries in the face of Chinese pressure. Beijing hit back on Thursday with a foreign ministry spokesperson saying China hopes the United States will respect its efforts to protect regional peace and stability alongside its neighbors. Next, it's been called one of the great humanitarian feats of the 20th century. In the early days of the Korean War, UN forces rescued 100,000 desperate civilians from the north. Decades later, the grandson of a U.S. colonel who played a vital role in the operation is determined to ensure the story is not forgotten.
People gathered in Seoul recently to mark the 70th anniversary of a mass evacuation known as the Miracle Mission. American Ned Forney was there to talk about the operation. In December 1950, besieged UN forces were retreating from Hungnam in the east of North Korea. The city's port was swarmed with a wave of refugees who also wanted to get out. The withdrawing troops squeezed as many civilians onto their ships as they could take. Forney's grandfather, Colonel Edward Forney, played a key role in the effort. Forney moved to South Korea 6 years ago. In that time, he's met with dozens of the evacuees to hear their accounts firsthand.
And they're really moving. Unbelievable. Every story is unique.
One of the people who made it out is 70-year-old Lee Gyeong-pil. He was the fifth baby born on one of the ships during the journey to the south.
I heard that someone ripped off the hem of a skirt to clean me when I was born, and someone bit through the umbilical cord.
Lee says the story of his birth has imbued him with a profound sense of duty.
People worked so hard to save me, so I want to share the story of the evacuation as much as possible.
Forney is equally determined to ensure more people learn about a remarkable chapter in history.
Good men who did the right thing for the right reasons in a very difficult situation helped change the history of Korea and the history of the 20th century. Thank you. 감사합니다.
I was really impressed to hear how Forney has been searching out evacuees and recording their experiences to ensure the memory is preserved.
They persevered and they had the courage and the fortitude, and they made it. And so I think that's the message that Hungnam sends us on this 70th anniversary, the message of hope.
It's an enduring message that Forney will continue to share with the world.
A well-known Japanese professional baseball player has decided to come home. Pitcher Tanaka Masahiro, formerly with the New York Yankees, will return to his old team in Japan. And it'll be the first time he plays in the country's pro league in 8 years. Officials from the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles announced they'd reached an agreement with Tanaka on Thursday. He began his professional career with the team in 2007. In 2013, he recorded 24 wins and no losses, helping the club win its first league and national titles. In the team's hometown of Sendai, northeastern Japan, fans are ecstatic the star right-hander is coming back.
As a fan of his, I'm very happy that Tanaka, who shined in the major leagues, is returning to Rakuten.
Tanaka joined the New York Yankees in 2014. He marked double-digit wins for 6 straight years, becoming the first Japanese to do so. Tanaka has 177 career wins, 99 in Japanese pro baseball, 78 in the major leagues. He became a free agent at the end of last season after wrapping up his 7-year contract with the Yankees. Next in weather, some residents of central Tokyo ran into some snow in the afternoon hours of Thursday. Our meteorologist Jonathan O has the details in our World Weather Report.
Hello, folks in Tokyo. Definitely saw some wintry weather as we went through Thursday. We had some cold air with some moisture rising from the south, and that helped to produce some of this wintry precipitation of snow, sleet, and then we had some cold rain as well. Here's a look at some video that came out from Tokyo as we went through Thursday afternoon. People in Metro Tokyo seeing snowflakes falling from the sky with the temperature dropping to 0.9 degrees Celsius during the daytime. We did see that rain transitioning over into snow at around the mid-afternoon hours, around 3 to 4, with Nerima Ward seeing some snow accumulating on the ground. Western Tokyo getting heavier snow. Parts of the metro likely to see some more of this wintry precipitation as we go overnight into Friday. And then once that wraps up, we're talking about a dry forecast for Tokyo through the weekend. But up toward the north, we have a low-pressure system that's really intensifying. It's going to bring some stronger winds and, yes, plenty of snow, especially along the Sea of Japan side of the nation for the north and northeastern portions of Japan. We're looking at mainly a dry forecast in Tokyo, seeing a little bit of snow in the Fukuoka, and then that will eventually clear up. We may even see highs in the mid-teens on Sunday in Fukuoka. Sapporo, you're going to be seeing plenty of snow. Tokyo hovering around 10 degrees with partly cloudy skies for the rest of the week into the weekend. Busy pattern across Europe. We're talking